Number one, an overstimulated nervous system. Number two, ever increasing amounts of mental tension. And number three, a high degree of self-absorption. What do I mean by those things? Basically, a overstimulated nervous system destroys a person's ability to connect physically and emotionally with other people. And that, of course, leads to a great many intimacy issues. Excessive mental abstraction causes people to relate to their mental construct, their mental idea of something, rather than the actual thing. People eat the menu instead of the meal, whereas obviously the meal is the thing that actually has the real nourishment. And thirdly, self-absorption manifesting as a person wanting too much for the other person to be just like them. What I mean by that is specifically the latest version of the list of demands, lexicon of expectation, needs, requirements that modern people carry with them and nurture and build and develop because they think that it empowers them, when in actuality it's the very thing that tends to keep them stuck. Why will they do this? Why will they get caught up in this? Because they'll want to find someone that can reflect back to them the latest version of their nervous system dysfunction, the latest version of their nervous system dysfunction and mental tension that they've then gotten through the things that I've mentioned already, steps 1 and 2, meaning all this information overwhelm from media, social media, podcast, therapy, self-help, all these things. So they need that latest version that's moved their nervous system to an even higher level of stimulation and threshold that then they're labeling as productive or useful, simply because it probably feels good or probably feels strong or is probably stimulating in some way. And because it feels more stimulating than the previous form of stimulation, they register it as a positive thing and then move further in that direction. Well, if I did cocaine and every day I did more cocaine, there's a part of my brain that's going to say, oh, that's actually better and beneficial because I feel more than I used to. Obviously, in reality, it isn't. But this is the same mechanisms occurring on obviously a bit more of a subtle level, but the same principles and mechanics are absolutely at play. So what I mean by the latest version of nervous system dysfunction and mental tension is specifically and explicitly this list of demands and this lexicon of expectations, needs, requirements that modern people carry around. They nurture it, they develop, they build it up, they organize it, they reorganize it, they categorize, they recategorize. They're doing all these things, but in reality, that's the thing that's keeping them stuck on the merry-go-round in the first place. But they're telling themselves that the actual opposite thing is true. Media is reflecting back to them that, oh, no. The more you commodify yourself, the more you dehumanize yourself, that's actually better. And then they get into these other industries that are saying, oh, yeah, this is the right thing to do. When in reality, it's just the blind leading the blind and kind of like lemmings running off a cliff. But if you're so far back in the herd of lemmings that you don't see that the cliff is ahead, you think you're progressing and you think you're moving towards something amazing, when in actuality, you're just running right off of a cliff like a lemming. So where does the information overwhelm come in? Well, it comes in through constant exposure to the media, to social media, to things like podcasts, or even obsessing over therapy and self-help and these kinds of things, which, yes, obviously, these things can be very beneficial, very useful, and of course be a natural part of life. But at a certain point, it also can just as easily become another form of indulgence and overindulgence that, of course, poisons us and works against our best interests. Obviously, food and water are both necessary for life. You need them to survive. But both obviously can become toxic at a certain point. You eat the wrong foods, you eat too much of the wrong foods, you drink way too much water. It can be very bad for you. That's just common sense. That's just being an adult and understanding, having discernment.